I made a call at that time, like, I need to do something else with my life. This is not going to work. And so I started looking for things, and Budgy Smuggler popped up. And also working with the Indigenous mentoring program. Sort of two very different things. But yeah, Lockie was looking to sell. It's a crazy story looking back, but he got a job working for a guy called Kevin Rudd, who came from like nowhere to become the Prime Minister in 2007. And Lockie came up with like the marketing for it, like Kevin '07. And this is...
Of where? Of what country?
Australia.
No
Australia.
way.
Yeah, so he was like 27, like I was 20, maybe he's 28, 29, I was 23 or something. And so...
How's he packaged it?
Well, so he's gone, yeah, would you like to buy a loss-making business selling Budgy Smugglers in a world where people are wearing board shorts past the knees? And I was like, I'm fucking keen. And then there was a couple of other guys who were with me, and then he wanted more money than any of us could afford at the time. And so fast forward 6 months, and I've been saving money for this or like another business, like just something to do to break out of the like having a normal job. And he had to go for a meeting to meet with Barack Obama and the UN. And it was in like a few days' time, and his cousin, a guy, Dave Grossman, who was running it for him, was going away as well. And he just called me one morning in Manly. I was hungover, and he said, mate, I need to shift this thing like fast. Can you give us an answer today? And I was like, fuck, I don't know if I can get the money, but let me give us a shot. Managed to pull together the promise of the cash. And it wasn't like totally crazy amount, but it was over a year's salary for me at the time, towards sort of 100 grand Aussie for a business that was turning over like 40,000, I think, and was losing like 5 or 10. So it wasn't like a no-brainer. And and then like an hour and a half later, the stock turned up at my house. It was about 200 or 300 pairs. A password written on a piece of paper for how to log into the website, and like just a tap on the back, good luck, son. And we didn't like do any paperwork, anything, not even by email, I don't think. It was just like, we'll sort it out when I'm back from the UN. So yeah, we sorted that out a couple of weeks later, and here we are, like 15 years later. Like I thought it would take off quickly, and I was pretty wrong.
On a side note, where's Lockie?
Lockie's doing well. Yeah. No, Lockie's had a really good career. I saw him in the paper the other day. He bought a house for $8.5 million or something. So
he's doing all right.
I think he's I think he's going all right. He's a really sharp mind. Still, is like he's sort of in and out of businesses. Like he's always like, in for 3, 4, 5 years. That's his sort of cycle. And I saw him when I was at a lunch. He was talking out the other day, and he was saying, like, how do you do it for 15 years? Like, he's like, you're like, his parents have a business in Australia called Harris Farm Markets. It's like it's a massive supermarket chain. He's like, they've done it for 40 years. How do you keep doing the same thing? But for me, there's been an evolution from like, it was in my bedroom for 7 or so years. So like, then we got an office. You know what I mean?
I was in the office. The one in London, or not the one in Australia?
Then we got one in Australia.
Yeah.
And then we got one in the UK, and now we're just setting one up in France. So like for me, it's been the first 8 years, actually, I had another full-time job. So I find it interesting or not interesting, but for people out there who might be listening, who have like started a side hustle, and you're trying to get ahead, and you're like, it's taking so long. And I'm like, how long have you been at it? And they're like, 6 months. I'm like, fuck. Like I ran this from my bedroom for 7, 8 years before we got an office. And I thought like, whoa, when I had to move out of my bedroom, that became the office. I was like, whoa, we've made it. And that was like 2016, I think. So it was like 8 or 9 years to make a profit, and all the money that I made from my job, I just kept pumping into Budgy, and we never had a year that grew more than 100%, but we never had one less than 30% for that 10-year period. So it was kind of just like steady, but if you're doing 50% growth, you're doubling every 2-3 years. You're 4 or 5, like it takes off very steeply. So part of it I knew was just sort of hanging in there, chipping away.
Such a cool brand. It is, and I've been a part of the journey for a few years. Some of the activations we've done with the Rugby Pod, hosted on the boat a few years ago.
The original UK's most ordinary rig.
Exactly. The UK's most ordinary rig. I mean, actually, it's genius when you think about it. And I hosted that on a boat on the Thames in a pair of budgies, but I had my suit over the top, and I was like, no, I can't. It's minus 35 here in London today. I've not done any glute exercises. For whatever reason, they're not fitting me amazing. And you're like, well, this is the whole thing, because it's like they're meant to be ordinary for ordinary people. You could sell it, and obviously Goody was there as well, and he could definitely sell it.
Yeah.
15 pints later, we're both knocking about on the boat, off our rockers in some Budgy Smugglers for what was a brilliant event that you put on. But actually, for all the jokes and the lols around it, a genius bit of marketing, because when you look at speed, it's changed now. My goodness me, let's not talk about...
When you look at brands that emulate Budgy Smuggler style swimwear.
Yeah, well, I was going to go more down now in terms of looking what brands do, like Adidas and all these, how they're marketing their stuff. But back in the day, when you look at Calvin Klein, Speedos, and you look at all them things, it was shredded human beings who were in phenomenal shape that only 1% of the population looked like. So how do you appeal to the masses when, especially in the UK, where the weather is miserable, most people feel the minus 35 degree heat. They're not in great shape.
Yeah.
They don't do many glute exercises.
No.
So in a pair of budgies, they ain't looking $1 million.
Yeah.
Like they would hope. And so I thought it was great. I thought that bit of marketing was really cool.
I think from our end, like, we're trying to build something like that when you put it on, you feel good. And so we mean that like both in the literal sense. And so a reason why a lot of players and that wear it is like the product feels good. If you've got good marketing, people will buy something once, but you have to have a good product for people to come back and wear it again and again. So that's one part of it, the literally feeling good. We want you to feel good about the brand, that we look after the environment and things like that. And then also to feel good within yourself. And the sort of start of the Ordinary Rig campaign was around sort of body image, I guess. It was sort of, I think the first one in Australia was in 2016. Sort of Instagram was becoming a big thing. And we had these kids come in from Penrith in Western Sydney, like working class area, rat's tails. And they were about to go to schoolies, which is like the big piss up when you finish high school in Australia. And I heard one of the kids go, "Oh yeah, mate, we're getting so ripped for schoolies." I was like, whoa, like that's changed a lot since I finished school, because there was no consideration about going to the gym to get shredded before you went away and finished high school. And so obviously like male body image had become probably followed in the footsteps of what women have been dealing with for a very long time. So we wanted to do something to counter that. Excuse me. And at the same time, the Victoria's Secret Parade was like huge, and that was just like way over the top. So my brother and I, we debate over who came up with the concept, but we wanted to do something to sort of make fun of the Victoria's Secret campaign and that impossible idea of beauty. And so we came up with a Miss World style pageant, which was Search for Australia, and then the UK's Most Ordinary Rig. So all the contestants had to make their own wings. The winner in the UK was a guy called Chris Steele, and he made these giant steel wings. They weighed like 50 kilos. So there's a bit of creative expression and stuff from the guys. But yeah, if the only people who were going to wear Budgy Smugglers as well were that Calvin Klein, and that's how most swimwear was marketed then, we weren't going to have a business to survive, and I needed to survive. So
you hit the sweet spot. And engaging the rugby teams, was that by fault or design, or are you from a rugby background, or was it a kind of an organic approach? Because in rugby, that was, I'd say, that has been part of the foundations of the company, and we've seen it branch into Luke and Tom Stoltman, one of the world's strongest men, and his brother.
Yep.
Sorry, Luke, you're more than just his brother. You're an absolute legend as well. But you know what I mean.
They are legends.
It has, and it's branched out into Formula One as well. But let's just start with the rugby side of it. Like, was that by fault or design?
Yeah, so I played like footy growing up, but when I was about 20, I realised no one was going to pay me to do it. I dislocated my shoulder, and I ran the profit and loss on it, and I was like, this isn't looking good. So I was out of the game pretty early. But some of the guys that I played with became Wallabies, and so they were some of the first guys that I got the product to, and I kind of jolted on me that a lot of blokes would wear Budgy Smugglers style swimwear when they were playing. There's a funny story actually. I remember it was like 2009, and Barrick Barnes used to be
the 10 for
the Wallabies
Australia,
in Queensland. His manager said, like, Barrick loves the product. Could we meet in town to see if he might be able to sponsor him? And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And he sort of asked a couple of questions about the brand, and he's like, we could do something for as little as like $10,000. And I think he just saw my face just go like, it's like, you okay, mate? I was like, I don't think
I'm so sorry.
And I just remember I could barely afford, I was running late, so I had to get a taxi from Redfern to the meeting, which was like 15 minutes, and it was like $17. I was like, fuck, I could barely afford the taxi. I'm like, that's stuck. I'm like, oh, mate, I don't think that's going to be possible. And he said, oh, like, how much are you turning over? And I was like, about a year in. So we'd gone from like 40 to 60,000. I'm like, 60 grand. He was like, oh, okay, mate, just get us a couple of pairs and we'll worry about it when you're a bit bigger. And then, I was really fortunate that Barrick and a lot of those Wallaby players, quite a lot of rugby league players as well, started to wear it, and just got a kind of mind of its own. And like in those early days, we were actually selling more, like the orders each day, there was more to professional rugby league and rugby union players than there was to just average punters. That was the kind of circle that it kicked off in first. And we also, if we did get pairs to players, like I had no money, so I could afford maybe like half a dozen pairs a month. And I used to do photo shoots and get my mates to buy the pairs to go in the photo shoot. Like there was one player in particular, George Rose in Australia, and he was like the last rotund kind of player left, and just a cracking bloke. And every tackle he played for Manly, he would get dacked. And
What's dacked?
Where someone would pull your pants down because and you'd see the pairs, and then the commentators got into it and started asking what pair he was going to be wearing, the next week, and they show him the pairs, and that really helped us. And there was, I mentioned before, like not competing, so we decided not to compete in the swimwear arena, and then the fabric that we chose is like quite different to a Speedo fabric, and it's actually meant for like long distance triathlon and that sort of thing. And it lasts pretty well in a pool, but it feels like it's almost got like a porcelain feel to it. And so like triathletes can wear it for doing like a full Ironman.
No chafe.
No chafe.
No chafe.
And so that's why I think now you see like rugby and like I see cricketers like playing a whole day in it. And then they're also like just functionally, if you get in an ice bath or whatever at the end of the game, it's easy. So there's a functional aspect to it, as well as, I thought when I met with Barrick's manager, if I have to pay $10,000 to every person to wear the product, that's going to be very expensive, even at scale. So I need to do this the other way and make a product that the players really like and want to wear. And so that's what I went about doing, and it took like 5 to 10 years.
Dream scenario, though.